will call the Freeman School District School Board meeting to order. First, we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda call will be roll call.
Slade?
Yep.
Henry?
Yes.
Cody?
Yep.
Doug?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yep.
All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I know that we have a couple of amendments.
Yes, so if you look on your updated agenda, number 11 would be the school board will hold a discussion about posting for the 6th grade certified teaching position. And then 12 would be the second amendment to the agenda, will require a motion to approve the posting for the 6th grade certified teaching position.
All right, we will require a motion to approve the amended agenda as outlined. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Kyle, second by Slade. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, conflict of interest disclosures. I did receive one conflict of interest disclosure from Doug McCune. He will be recusing himself from any discussion or voting relative to agenda items 9 and 10, which contains the discussion around the bids for the hangar. I received no other conflict of interest disclosures. Next item on the agenda, public input.
I've received none.
Okay. Next item, consent agenda, will require a motion to approve the following. The minutes of the special school board meeting of February 8th, 2022, minutes of the regularly scheduled school board meeting of February 14th, 2022, minutes of the Cornwall Cooperative Board of Advisors meeting of February 16th, 2022, the contract of Christina Sweeter, school counselor for the 2022-2023 school year, the contract of Jacqueline Goosen, special education teacher for the 2022-2023 school year, the contract of Jody, I am really going to butcher this name, I'm sorry, Negebauer, sorry Jody, second grade teacher for the 2022-2023 school year. I believe we had a request to remove G as well from the consent agenda. That was part of the amended agenda as well, I believe.
If we would need to take action.
Perfect, okay, sounds good. All right, just want to make sure.
That was the request.
Accept the resignation of Caitlin Crack, and we thank her for her service. Accept the resignation of Morgan Gerken, and we thank her for her service. Accept the resignation of Chad Rembold as assistant golf coach, the contract of Sherry Rembold as assistant golf coach, the financial report, and the claims for March. Discussion around those consent agenda items.
I'd like to amend the consent agenda so we can address item G after come out of executive session.
Okay. Is there any opposition to that?
No.
All right, wonderful. Then I'll require a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of G, of letter G. Do I have a motion? Motion by Cody,
Second.
second by Doug. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda will be the administrative reports.
I handed mine out before the meeting. Our dial screening, I think I brought this up last month, so our dial screening and preschool screening, kindergarten roundup is on the 23rd and 24th. Elementary science fair, they're doing presentations and then my understanding is they're gonna display them in the hallway. I don't know anything about display to the public, but they are doing science fair projects and they're gonna present their stuff and then I think they display it in the hallways for all the other kids to see. Elementary had their parent-teacher conferences on the 16th and 17th. We had an 86% turnout, which is down a little bit, but I looked at last year, it was within a percentage point of the second one last year. Our first one's usually in the low 90s, this was at 86. Jake had put in one of the ESSER grants about summer school for learning loss, and I guess I did a proposal to Jake about using the summer school money for Cheddar Colony. When we look at the test scores out at Cheddar Colony, they've obviously the ones that have declined the most. I think he had 15,000 in the Cheddar County, so I would like to run a two 4 weeks, 6 hours a day. We would set up stations, 55-minute stations, and group the kids and rotate them. We probably have one station related to ag, just the county kind of likes that, try to tie some ag stuff in there. We usually do an arts and craft just so that they have something fun, and then we do 4 stations of core classes that we look at the test scores this spring, and design those based on those test scores then. What I was proposing, I was hoping we could do out at Cheddar County.
That's a program that we've used in the past.
A similar program, it's a little longer than what we've done in the past, usually it was half days, but they need the time in the classroom. Usually they fight us on summer school because all those little kids are their leaders in the garden, and I was surprised Joseph out there didn't fight me more than he did, so he seemed to be on board. Number 5, I received a phone call a couple weeks ago from the South Dakota Department of Education. I'll try to be as politically correct as I can here. The federal government asked me if I knew what disproportionality was, and I told them I had no idea what she was talking about. It's something new in South Dakota coming from the federal government. So the issue is, they looked at one of our SPED categories, which was our SPED students that are speech only, and we have 34 kids on speech only IEPs. Of the 34, only 3% are minorities, the other 31 are Caucasians. So as she was telling me that, I was like, okay, that's 9.6%. I said, well, what are your numbers you're using for my general population then? And we did the math, and it was like 9.4. I said, well, my SPED population is pretty representative of my general ed population as far as minorities. She said, that's not the problem. The problem is you only have 3 minorities. And because you only have 3, we're getting kicked into a different number for the state of South Dakota that the federal government has set. So the issue is, there are strict guidelines to qualify for IEPs to get this service. I can't create more minorities on IEPs. So the only way that we can fix this number is we need to remove Caucasian kids from IEPs based on their skin color only. And I told her, I said, we have a district policy that says we don't discriminate against people based on race. You know, there's a number of items that's on our policy. So, I mean, she flat out told me you have too many white kids on IEPs, is what she told me. We had so then I called the co-op director, so then we did a Zoom meeting with all our SPED people and this gal out at Pier. And basically what they want us to do is they want us to go through the IEPs of the white kids and try to find a reason that we can make an argument to remove them from services. So they want us to remove these kids, not based on their need, based on their skin color. Now, special ed parents have due process rights. They have a lot more rights than regular ed. And I said to her, if I have a Caucasian family that challenges me because I removed their child, what's my argument in a due process hearing? No answer. So if we don't fix this problem, they're going to look at our numbers again and what we submit in December, and if we don't fix it, they're going to come in and take money from us and fix the problem for us.
How many kids?
We didn't get that far.
Okay.
When you're having discussions about having to remove kids based on their skin color in South Dakota, your blood pressure goes up.
Right. Right.
So that's what we have coming down from the federal government. I don't know how do you have those conversations with those parents that were removing your kid if they qualify? But if we don't, they're gonna come in and take 15% of our money, and they're gonna come in and do it for us.
Something we reach out to the Associated School Board of South Dakota and see how many districts are gonna be affected by that. We can get a.
She said it's a very small number that's being affected. There are a few. And And we also asked her, does Governor Noem know that South Dakota Department of Ed is contacting schools telling them that they have to remove kids based on skin color, and she said no. I mean, this is,
What kind of time period do we have to address this?
well, they're gonna look at our numbers, the numbers that we submit December 1st is when we will resubmit our new sped numbers.
So a little time, not a lot. Okay.
Maybe minutes seem, it's crazy, like you said, your numbers within your population rate are real close, like it's crazy that that doesn't even.
It's because we only have 3, we have to have more than 3. That didn't matter on the percentage. Yeah, our sped population of minorities is very close to what our general population of minorities is. I told my wife through all this craziness that's happening in the United States, I'm so glad I live in South Dakota, and now here it is. I don't know what the answer is here.
Yes, I'm surprised with how many, because I know from the teachers, a lot that I've gotten from them and, is, you know, their frustration with English as second language and things like that. I guess I'm surprised that there aren't more
Well,
kids that
so the
qualify
state
for-
tells us those kids that you can't put them on IEPs if
Okay.
you can't determine that it's a speech problem.
Right, that's what I thought.
Because they're gonna tell you that it's because they don't know the language. We can't
Right.
determine if they
That
qualify for a
is,
speech.
right, under the speech, yeah, that's what I figured, but, okay.
That's why those kids don't qualify. That's all I have.
All right. So I just have some celebrations for our students and our teachers and our coaches and our advisors and our AD. So congratulations to Riley Cheddar for making it to state wrestling and placing 7th. That's pretty awesome. Congratulations to our band students. They went to the Region 1 instrument ensemble and all of them received superiors except for one, and they were 1 point away, so that was good. 7th and 8th grade oral and Turk students that went to the Corn Belt Conference, all of them received a superior. Sophomores went over to Marion to the career fair. They did a great job representing our school. I even had people reach out that was not part of our district and say, hey, I saw your kids today. They were really well behaved at the career fair, so that was kind of nice. Our FFA students had a successful pancake feed on the 4th, so thanks to everybody that came out and supported them for that. And then a big thanks to Christy and Mr. Seiler and all the staff who helped during that wrestling region tournament, and then the region basketball too. There was a lot of people here, but it ran smooth. I thought they did a good job, and we had a lot of people talking about that too, like just keeping, you know, at the wrestling tournament, keeping people off the side, and then at the basketball tournament, just making sure that those students were in the student sections and things like that, so that was good. Seniors, we had 5 seniors apply for the Southeastern Area Principal Scholarship. And 4 of those were chosen to move on. Each school could choose 4, so best of luck to them. That's a $500 scholarship. And then we have ordered the medals, the pins, and the cords for graduation. Those are showing up, so that's exciting. And then a couple other updates. 3rd quarter's over. We're in our final quarter for the year. That's gonna go fast. And then on the back of this, you know, we talked about before that Owen and Betty Kaufman scholarship. And so the bank out in Washington, we went through the will and we kind of put together what was highlighted in the will as their wishes as to who would receive the scholarship. So this is what the guidelines look like for the students who are wanting to apply for it. A couple of changes that we made that we felt was appropriate was their will said they would like 1 male and 1 female student. So basically it says when we can do that, we will. But my question to her was, gender is kind of a touchy subject, but the other issue is our classes, you know, we have 15 kids this year. What if 4 girls apply? I can't choose 2 because because it's a girl. And so we talked about that. She said, yeah, you could have a whole class of girls or even a whole class of boys, right? And so we are going to be able to choose 2 students, 1 boy and 1 girl, if that's who applies, but we can choose 2 based on that. So that's exciting. That's a really big scholarship for us, and so we're excited to offer that to our seniors. National Honor Society letters are out to our juniors and seniors who have maintained that 3.0 during their first 5 semesters in high school, so we encourage all of them to apply for that. And then 2 of the 3 missing composites from the hallway are currently at the framers. So that's exciting, and then the third one is on its way to the printer, so those should all be done. And then I'm already asking seniors to get the next one in, so we can just keep going, just get that fourth one done and then be completely up to date, so. Smarter Balance testing begins next week, so we wish all of our students the best of luck during that testing time. And then, conferences is fantastic in the elementary side, but it is a struggle for us on the high school side. Obviously, that's a low turnout. I'm guessing, some of that's due to the fact that parents can check that ED in campus at the drop of a hat at any time, and they kind of know how their students are doing. But our teachers who also teach the 5th and 6th grade, they saw a pretty high number, but the rest of, some of them saw 3 parents the whole night. So we need to work on figuring out how to encourage parents to attend that, or decide maybe what a conference should look like differently than the elementary side of this level. A vaping update, we received some posters, so thank you for those, and I'm gonna give those to our student council and allow them to have some decisions in what they want to hang up and where they wanna put those. And then right now, we just have several staff that have some parents that aren't doing very well, so we just wanna continue to keep them in our thoughts and prayers, because we know that that can be difficult. And then on the bottom, you'll see just some updates, some upcoming events. One that I do want to point out is that Life Serve Blood Drive that will be at the school on March 23rd. Lily is going to be hosting another one of those. So if you are not doing anything and you want to donate some blood, that would be a great thing to sign up for. And then we have prom coming on April 1st, so that's also exciting. That's it.
In your packets, I have a 2022 legislative bill summary. So a nice little cheat sheet, so to speak, for what's going on with our local legislation or state legislation. A couple things I want to highlight there is under the funding bills. So we're looking at, this will go to the governor for signature for the 6% increase in state aid funding for general education. That was a big thing. That's something that we anticipated was going to happen, and very happy that it's taken one more step to being finalized here. Also have below that the special education funding by disability level, and you can see the number of increases there in the right column, so that's nice to see that as well. On the second page, a couple that I want to highlight is SB 54, the top one, provides $30 million to Dakota State University for the expansion of their cyber program. This is big for high schools because it will give us an opportunity for our high school students to take additional classes, including dual credit classes. So that's very exciting there and exciting for the entire state. I touched base on this one a few months ago that HB 1047, this would be the renovation of the Culture Heritage Center. It's a pretty hefty dollar figure that would be put towards that. In the education bills, a bulk of those were added language to the medical cannabis policies. And then on the back page, one that I'd like to highlight would be HB 1080, that'd be the blue ribbon legislation that addresses teacher salaries, and that has been extended through fiscal year 2024. So those are some of the key ones, and if you'd like to read up on the short narrative of any of the other bills, feel free to do so. Christy Sage and I will be performing end of the year meetings with winter sports season coaches. Some of the things that we discuss in those meetings are just the coach's overall reflection on the season, areas of strength that the coach feels that they themselves or the program can be met, areas of growth that the coach would like to see for themselves and for the program, and then goals that the coaches have for the future of the program. So we started this process in the fall and we're carrying it through into the winter, and we're looking that this will be a new norm for us, for Christy and myself, to sit down with our coaches and just have that discussion on how we can continue to improve our programming. I've taken on myself an additional role within the community. I'm part of the Freeman Community Development Corporation, FCDC, and they have started a subcommittee to develop a vision and plan that addresses the workforce shortage within the community. So I'm one of 4 individuals that's part of that committee. We'll be meeting with Scott Stern to develop and implement this plan, so I'm very excited for that work in the future. I believe that's all I have for this portion of the meeting.
next item on the agenda, any unfinished business items? I don't have any. Great. New business, the second viewing of the 2022-2023 Freeman School District calendar.
Included in your packets, we have the final draft copy of the calendar, the district calendar. Since our last meeting, I have had principals have had meetings with their staff, just regular staff meetings to gather feedback, and I have met with the chief negotiators as well. They have met with staff individually and gathered feedback, and some of the areas that we have adjusted based off of that staff feedback would be the start of the school year. We were originally looking at having our professional development days, 2 of them in that third week in August. We've shifted one over to, so it'll be August 10th, August 11th, and August 15th for 3 days. For the reason of that, we'll give our students and staff, more so staff, an opportunity to attend the fair. So free up a little bit more time during that fair week. And then we had discussed the parent-teacher conferences, and I had originally proposed that we shake things up a little bit, like Katie had mentioned, try to explore ways that we can better involve our parents in conferences. But the feedback from staff was that they felt that was something that they wanted to keep in place. So we're shifting that back to our current structure. But I was very proud of our staff, and they said that we'd like to extend that time to allow more time in the evenings. So those on the 5th and the 6th of October will be from 2 o'clock till 6:30 to allow that increased time for parents to come in after work. And then we'll mirror that, and then so that with the 5th and the 6th, and then the 7th would be that comp day for the additional time that's put in on those 2 days. And then in February, the 15th and the 16th, and then the 17th would be that comp day, and the same thing for those, the 15th and 16th would be from 2 o'clock until early dismissal for students, and then 2 o'clock to 6:30 p.m. for the conferences. So I think those were the main changes that we made to the calendar from last meeting.
Great, is there any questions or any discussion surrounding the 2022-2023 Freeman School District calendar? All right, then I will need a motion, or will require a motion to approve the 2022-2023 Freeman School District calendar. Do I have a motion? Motion by Cody, second by Kyle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, the school board will hold the discussion about the dates and format used for teacher negotiations.
So I've included in your packet our board policy for negotiations, procedures, and ground rules. I have just today provided these to one of our negotiators to share amongst their group, so they'll have an opportunity to look at those ground rules as well. What we're looking at, and I've met in that meeting that I had with them, I asked them what were some potential dates that would work for them for negotiations. Past practice in the district is that we would hold a special board meeting for negotiations, and that would, the dates that they threw out as options that I'd like the board to discuss and to decide on tonight would be either March 28th or April 6th. And then for those meetings, we would use this negotiation procedure and ground rules like we've used in the past for that meeting.
What are the 2 dates again?
March
28th and April 6th.
Wednesdays are hard during Lent.
And they actually said the 28th would be more favorable. I think that one was that a Monday?
That's a Monday.
And then the follow-up meeting would be, and this has been past practice as well, if it's necessary to have an additional meeting, we would meet prior to the board meeting on April 11th.
Okay. Is there any questions or discussions surrounding the dates and format used for teacher negotiations? Personally, the March 28th would work better for me, but I can certainly accommodate the 6th as well, so. 28th, good for you? Okay.
Yep.
Sling? Okay, great. Go with March 28th. any discussion around the negotiated procedures or ground rules? Ben?
Good question Shane brought up, time that would work best. I'll stick with 7 o'clock. Does that work for them?
Great. Then I'll require a motion to approve the date of March 28th at 7 PM for teacher negotiation meetings. Motion by Cody, second by Doug. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, we'll phase 2 of the lighting project.
Yeah, so phase 1 is coming to near completion, and we're looking at approving for phase 2 or payment for phase 2, so they can get all those lights, start to bring those lights in. My understanding is all the lights are stored in a warehouse, but we need to approve for the payment to be able to process so they can continue on with the supplies needed to complete the phase 2 of the project. So phase 1 was for the most part the high school side of things and the gymnasiums. We're looking at a couple classrooms that need to be done yet, that these in here have been completed in the library here, so just a few more things left at the high school, and we're ready to start heading down to phase 2, which would be the elementary side of the building.
He's just kind of working this in when there's a school and he's got time type deal.
Yep.
And that's kind of the plan going forward.
Yep, yeah, he's done a really nice job. Really, the one thing that we asked was that he accelerate was the gyms, just because we wanted to get that done as early in the competition season as we could, and they did a nice job of bringing in an outside group, and Ryan paired with another electrician to get those done. And classrooms don't have quite as high urgency. The most important thing is we're not interfering with the classroom environment, and pick and choose those times when Ryan can make it and school allows him to be here.
Anyone have any questions? Anyone else? Additional discussion?
Everything looks great, no reason not to move forward with the second half.
Were there any cost increases in the first half?
There will be a couple additional items, thank you Doug, that were brought up with an example. That would be for the science classroom, those lights need to be cut out. So we're looking at that, cutting them out, installing the new ones. We'll have to cut out a little bigger area around them. So then the additional cost would be, once the light is installed, we'd have to get a border that would hide the lines from where the cutting into the ceiling took place. So, that was one. There's a couple other, Debbie, do you remember off the top of your head some of those that I mentioned to you? Sorry to put you on the spot, but there's a couple other items that were just additional items that were needed.
Maybe get some covers for some rooms that
That would be to science.
Dimming cover type deal or?
Yeah, from my understanding, it was a border that would go, once the light's in place, it would go around the outer edge. Casing, kind of just cut it in.
Did the lights, the second batch that got sold on Purple Wave for a few bucks, did they ever get some of your?
Yes, so they're all done.
So they'll probably do the same thing with this batch?
Yeah.
Get it all?
Yep, I think we'll probably surplus these as well. So are you thinking Purple Wave, or are you thinking, because we surplus the rest of the classroom lights?
I think it's what they just told us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the motion was made for the remainder of the classroom lights, so I don't think we would have to take any more action. I think we can just carry, for phase 2, carry out on that original motion from the board, as long as they're classroom lights, that will ensure for these phase 2 as well.
So no motion for agenda item 5.
No, it'll be,
Oh, for the,
just not for the
no, for
Purple
the
Wave.
Purple Wave. I'm like,
To proceed.
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve amendment 5, not amendment 5. Motion, sorry.
Agenda
Throw around big
number
words for no
5, I
reason.
know, it's, yeah, we'll struggle through. Okay, motion by Slade, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, the school board will hold a discussion about cooperative agreement timelines. I know I just wanted to make sure that we followed up. I know before, we had kind of left it open-ended after the football co-op discussion to see if we wanted to pursue any additional discussions about adding additional sports into that co-op agreement. Of course, we're coming across, again, a pretty tight timeline, so personally, I think it, you know, we were able to, we've still got some items obviously hanging out there about the football co-op and things like that, so I guess my preference would be to hold off on adding any additional sports at this time and just revisit it perhaps even within the next school year, just again, because we're coming up on that tight timeline and we can kind of follow through, make sure that we do everything correctly and smoothly for the football co-op before we get into anything else. Other discussion or questions? Thoughts? Right. Yep, and as we look at softball and whatnot, we can look at that as we actually work on that, so sounds good, we'll circle back on that. Again, and also, I should say too, I haven't talked to any of the other folks from the other boards as well, I'm not sure of their interest either, so, but that was one of my thoughts, to just raise that for now and then. Revisit it later.
It's not been any discussion and considered with the football
Yes.
side of things.
Softball is fall, or
Spring. Sure.
7 points in the hot.
Right, yeah, exactly, maybe like at the beginning of the 2022 school year, right, yeah.
I won't say that's start of the
Summer.
Sure,
Time to just get our task force back together.
Sure.
July, August.
With the community members and the,
Anytime after June or if you cut out.
guys. Alright, great, oh, that sounds good. Great, next item on the agenda, school board will hear options for football mascot that were developed by a task force committee.
Yeah, so the task force is, this will include your packet, the 4 options. This is actually the ballot as well that our students can see. The task force met last week, and that task force consisted of 4 individuals, equal representation from each of the 3 school districts. That included the AD, their student council rep, a coach, and that coach was decided on by each school, and a booster club rep. So all 12 individuals got together. There was a school board member that was in the room, there was not a superintendent that was in the room. And they talked about different feedback that they had received. Freeman Public included in our school announcements for students to talk to our student council rep and provide ideas for her to bring to the meeting. So all ideas were put on the table with that committee. They talked them through, and by the end of it, they came out with 5 different mascots, one of which was later determined it would not be a good option for the districts in the block. And what we have used for our process is if we have 3 boards that we need to stay in unison with, if there's any one board that does not agree with any of the options, that they would not approve that, and then that option would be taken off the table. So that would be situations where it would be something that would not appropriately represent our school district. This wouldn't be options that necessarily we don't like. We need to respect the work that the task force has done, and respect that these are the unified, equal representation. Number of individuals from all 3 schools got together and put together. So as long as we don't see any issues of this misrepresenting our district, my recommendation would be to go with these 4 options.
Just for the record,
Rebels discussed these options, so everybody listening, get a camera or sitting here in the room or wherever, that's all phone calls, texts, emails, and others.
That's a good question. I was not part of the meeting, but what was brought to my attention is there was a little over 5 minutes that was spent out of the hour-long meeting, approximate hour meeting, discussing the Red Bulls, or the Rebels, sorry, and it was a small sampling of that committee that was very strongly for, a small sampling that was very strongly against. Ultimately, after they discussed it, the committee, they felt that this is a new cooperative, that our current wrestling cooperative has more than just 3 schools that are part of it. So they felt that this is a new co-op, that it should be a new mascot that should be considered for this cooperative.
I mean, I will say is, I mean, just going back to the initial task force discussions and Doug can say, well, I mean, that was something that was brought up and, I mean, at least discussed that it would be a new mascot. I think from the very beginning, when we had those task force discussions, when we were looking even, even in all sports or just football or whatnot, that was something that was brought up by the other board members there as well, that they wanted to make sure that it was a new, fresh, mascot that was chosen as well, but.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When we were involved, it was important to us to make sure the students had a chance to
Right.
propose. I'm guessing the students that propose. I don't know if they were given direction one way or another, but
I know it was brought up in the meeting, I don't know if that was brought up by our student council, or if that was brought up by anyone else that was there, but I know it was brought up at the meeting as an option. Voting, the students, these 4 options, the plan would be, should it be approved by the board tonight and approved by Marion board tonight as well. We go to our students tomorrow and they would vote. Would be it's not a 100% balance, so it's weighted for the both between the elementary and the high school. So we felt that that was an important step in the process to make sure that everybody understands the process and what they're voting on. The high school kids just have a better understanding of what they're voting on. But every student within all 3 districts will have an opportunity for their voice to be heard and to weigh in on this process and ultimately vote on the next mascot or mascot.
We had a none of the above on the voting for the students if they don't like any of the choices. I know 3 of these are NBA teams. It's a football team, which seems kind of odd. And the other one is a dragon. I'm not real thrilled about any of the choices, and if we're gonna leave it to the students, I think maybe there would be a none of the above vote as well. And then we can start over.
I think we get that could be a possibility. What we need to take into account is that it's not just the Freeman School Board that is weighing in on this, that it is 3 school boards, and if one board does something different in their action than the other 2, then
Yeah, I
the
mean,
process is.
this school board didn't have any say on any of these 4 names to begin with, so I mean, if that's the
Neither
argument.
did the academy, but they already passed it.
Right,
Well,
well, that's their prerogative.
Yeah.
Personally, I agree with Slade, like, I thought what the Washington football team was crazy, but they must have looked at this 4 list of teams. And so, that's where I stand.
I just don't understand naming a football team after a basketball team, a professional basketball team, and 3 out of the 4 choices are professional basketball teams.
I mean, I would say that if there were any folks that were there, the booster president, the student council reps, et cetera, they would probably not be super pleased to hear that. But, I mean, there's a reason that we hold more people than just us 5 that were on the school board. But, I mean, I guess I feel myself that my opinion of these 4 isn't important, it's the students, I guess, and they had input on this. I think that Lily got maybe 1 student that actually emailed her, reached out with a mascot idea. So, again, if there's that much, drive to try and get their their ideas and nobody reaches out, I guess. I don't understand why we need to have none of the above. But that's just my thought.
I do agree that students should have a say, but kind of like, you don't let the
Right.
sailors run the ship, there's somebody in charge.
Well, yeah, but I don't think any of these are inappropriate. It
No, I
doesn't
don't
matter if
agree.
they're my favorite or not. I mean, you know, none of our, yeah, we're there to make sure that it's not an inappropriate representation. And let me tell you, when I was Googling, things, I mean, certainly there's some out there that I was surprised to see. But I don't think any of these are inappropriate, I guess, and,
We have an idea of where the ideas came from, because if Lily only received one submission from the student body, then are these all from Freeman Academy?
It was equal, my understanding, equal representation from all three schools for presentation of ideas. I can't speak specifically to who brought up which one.
right, how
but-
many kids reached out to each, but.
But there was, each district brought ideas and put them on the table that were discussed. So this list right here there's a number of them that were ideas that came from Freeman Public. There's one that was removed was academies. I don't know if there's any others that were academies. I believe there was one on this list that came from 2 out of the 3 districts that brought that as an idea to the meeting. But there was equal representation of ideas from all 3 schools presented. We'll add also that the not actual image, these were just samples of the image. The image that we ultimately end up going with could look very different. What I've learned in the past on developing mascots is I believe it's 20% of whatever mascot you are looking at modeling after has to be changed, it has to be different. It just has to do with, different laws that, trademarking laws and, so that it'll for sure look very 20% different, but potentially look completely different than these. The point of putting these on here was we wanted to give the students an idea of what it could look like. And that's what we had, but it's not the actual image that will be adopted.
Any further discussion? All right, moving forward then, our motion would be to approve the football mascot options. If we would have to add if we would want to add an additional option of none of them, that would need to go back through the other boards as well, just making sure I'm understanding that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Board action would have to be taken by them as well. So in this
What's the
instance-
lead time that needs to be taken into account for uniforms, et cetera?
I don't have the answer to
Okay,
that.
I was just curious. I would assume that we
Today's
would have
market.
lots of, time, but also the current environment as well. I know that things are taking a lot longer than they typically would, so I guess I would be, I would like to respect the input and all of the time and energy and discussion that the task force put together. As well as, I would rather not drag this out, I guess, another month either, especially since I don't feel as though any of them are particularly inappropriate. So, if no one else has any,
I think not being inappropriate is a pretty low bar, doesn't mean they're good. There's a lot of things that are inappropriate. Why couldn't we name them after a football team? 3 of these are professional basketball teams, they don't make any sense. They're not relevant at all to football. I
how
think,
is Flyers relevant to football?
because it's not an NBA team. Flyers covers all sports, this is strictly for football. Why wouldn't we name it after a football team, if anything? This is 75% NBA teams. Just don't understand how it went that direction. I think, to move this along, I'm in the minority. 3-2, so let's just go ahead with approving it.
Well, I wanna make sure that you, I mean,
I don't
still
think it matters,
have your
right?
voice, but.
Everybody else is,
All right, then I'll require a motion to approve the football mascot options that will be voted on by the Freeman students. Do I have a motion? Further discussion then? Let's back up then. If I don't have a motion, then we need to have further discussion.
Ultimately, I want this to be the kid's decision, that's where I'm at, so. I don't know if those make sense to a lot of people. I know these don't make sense to a lot of people. I don't have an axe to grind here. I'm a little bit frustrated with the process. I thought that there would be a formal way for student input, and maybe that's my mistake for not understanding how that task force was gonna work. I assumed that the kids would be polled and the top 5 or 10 submissions from each student in high school, this is gonna affect, would then submit something, and it would be compiled, and the top choices of those what would move forward with the vote. So, that's my hesitation on this. It's
Sure.
not because of the names on here, like I said, I could really care less, because I want the kids to pick what they want.
Now, Jake, didn't you say that you wanted?
Yeah, I did talk with our upperclassmen football players and asked them what they felt would be the right process to go with, and explain that we were gonna do the survey for students. Ask them, since this is, most impacts them the most, being football players themselves, if they felt that we should do a survey to gather ideas and then filter through them and then put those ideas into a vote at the end. And they said that they felt that it wasn't necessary to do the first survey, that we're a small enough school to where if we just gathered feedback and had Lily bring it to the meeting, they felt that that would be sufficient. So that's why we didn't go that process, to that step in the process.
Do you feel like these are an accurate representation of what the students are to choose from?
I spent a lot of time asking kids for ideas and did not get any ideas back from the kids. The most fun was, and I connect with the kids during the lunch periods. It's a good time to bring up these topics, but when I brought it up to the middle school table, the football player table, and at, the highly involved middle school students, it was fun to hear the buzz there, but more ideas, a few more ideas came, from there, but encourage them to share those ideas with Lily, and I just don't know if they did so. Could be through email or whatnot, but if we feel like we don't have a motion, this would put us back, but there's an alternative plan, I guess, that we could possibly pursue if we'd like to talk about that plan.
So I'm with Doug. Ultimately, my decision doesn't really matter. Nothing doesn't, the kids really wanted one of
Right.
these. But if, I do agree, if we're gonna do that for the kids, if there was an option of maybe another mascot or another idea, maybe, I wouldn't have a problem if that was what it was. If one of these wins, fine, then that's what it is. But if we have to put a fifth one on there that says, yeah, maybe we can do better, and the kids then come up with one, I'm okay with that too.
So then if that-
Ultimately, I'll cheer for the Raptors and the Mavericks, or the Trailblazers. I'm not gonna anti-cheer against the school, but.
I have an inflatable dinosaur costume that I've been really wanting to wear to sporting events, so, yeah, no. Right? So Kyle, your thought would be, if the highest vote would be for none of the above, that you would get, just get that task force
Maybe-
between the 3 schools back together
I
to do
would-
that, or
I'd cut the
what?
task force out. If we're gonna go with kids, go straight to the kids. Let the kids make the decision. And to do, if it's not one of these, put a line in there, say,
Write in.
Write it
Write
in,
it
and
in.
if you don't write something in, pick one of these four, or your ballot's thrown away. And not that there has to be the most for the 7-Elevens or the 49ers or whatever, but as long as there's more for another option, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I don't care.
I wouldn't have a problem making a motion to amend things and go that direction, because at the end of the day, there's 4 choices and there's 3 districts, and it might be no clear direction after the 3 districts vote. You might have
It's a simple-
33% for
Yeah,
everyone. So, if
that's true.
this is an easier option for the student body to voice their opinion, I think we give it to them. Because if we're saying we want them to be part of the decision, that's an easy way to make it part of the decision.
And I think as a fallback, if we're worried about the timing of things and being able to get uniforms in a timely manner, we just go with the Freeman Public, Freeman Academy, Marion football team. Much like the Washington football team.
Let's not do that.
I mean, I guess I'm fine with the write-in, the option, just as you do for any adult, yeah, I mean, type.
Otherwise, I don't think it's.
At least the kids have a little bit more choice, maybe. That's what I
Right.
say, you know.
Well, and I can see, I mean, as well, I mean, certainly, it would be difficult to be a student and there with all of the adults and feel like you could still maybe voice your opinions on
And I know how
it.
my kid is, she's not gonna go out of her way to go talk to Lily unless she runs into her in the hallway.
Right.
But if she has something right in front of her, she's probably gonna give her opinion, and I would imagine that's the same for a lot of students. So I would like to provide them that opportunity as an option.
And ask that the academy and Marion does the same thing? Okay.
If they choose. I mean, I think that's their right as a
Prerogative,
board
right.
to vote
Yep.
how they want. I would support a motion that adds a right.
Okay.
I don't feel like we should do it on the above, because that's gonna,
I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
we need to
Write-in
move-
serves the same purpose,
Right,
that's fine.
well, we
At
need
least
to
gives
move
them
in
that
a
option.
direction,
Right.
yeah, I didn't
I'm
want
okay
to
with
start
it.
over.
Right, no, you don't have to start
This
over.
is, yeah, at least.
That makes sense.
Moving into the direction.
The other thing that does give an option too is like if there's enough people that are like
Not
rebels.
participate. Oh, yeah,
You
oh,
know,
yeah,
like,
exactly,
then
yep.
Maybe that's where, I'm guessing Marion would probably have the same feeling that rebels might be a fairly well-written number, maybe not the academy, but, you know, like, that might, maybe that's more clear.
you know, we also have to respect the academy, because they're part of this co-op. So
Yes.
I know they had an issue with one of the proposed mascots, and because of their
Violent connotation.
religious feelings, if whatever gets written in, and if that's the way the majority goes, and they're not comfortable with it, then I think we gotta respect that, because they're part of the co-op too.
I agree, and I also think, somebody said, I'm not positive what the rebel mascot, but I think it's holding a gun, right?
Yes,
A musket.
A musket.
yeah.
And so like, I can see where maybe they don't want that, and I guess I
Take it
understand.
off.
Right,
Take it off, I mean.
and to be honest, in today's world, we probably shouldn't have a mascot that is holding a gun
Right,
for us. So,
Yeah.
but,
It's entirely possible you could have a second, third place pick that weren't on the sheet as well. You know, if it's Rebels, then something else, Wolverines,
Right.
Browns,
sure.
you know, there could be.
What's up?
Browns? Browns, yeah.
What?
I just, you know, they're a professional football team, they play in the NFL.
no, do they?
They're Division 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought they were.
Again, one of the challenges that we have here is that there's 3 boards that need to be unified. If we are not unified with the other 2, we need to go back and start over.
Mhm.
We need to go through the process, so I think I don't know how we navigate through this, if we're not happy with what's listed here, because we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board, and we're gonna have to come up with a new plan, and we're gonna have to, whatever is moving forward, the other 2 boards aren't discussing that tonight.
Right.
So they're not gonna be able to discuss it until the next meeting, and then they would have to take action. And we can take action tonight, but that doesn't.
So all we have to do is table this then.
Well, we could essentially still have our vote, and we might be,
Or else we
we
can
might
table
be
it
the
until our.
trailblazers, and we're falling in line with or, like Doug said, the academy wants to be the Raptors, Marion wants to be the Mavericks, and then we're the trailblazers, and here we sit, and we trying to figure it out from there. You know. So I don't think this is a one meeting and done thing anyway.
I believe it goes by student count, so we would have the most
It would
votes
be a-
here, obviously, so
Right,
it wouldn't.
but it'd be a simple
It's
majority.
not like one
to-
school chooses, it's just
You're not picking
all of
grades?
the counts go
Okay.
together and the
Okay.
highest count is the winner essentially,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think my question, just because I'm the one that has to count the ballots, is if you do that bottom option, right, and let's say you get 15 more names, then how do we take those and narrow that down to have a, do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you might have 50 for the trailblazers, you might have 50 for the Raptors, you might have, and then 35 other random options that they came up with, which is fine. How do we take that whole list then and narrow that down? Because you're almost gonna
Well, it's
need,
just a single
you're almost
vote.
gonna need 2 votes for that.
You might have to have multiple, I
You know
mean,
what I'm
it's
saying?
gonna be more,
Yes.
more work
Because-
for you, but you might have to.
What I'm hearing is that you want students to have more choice in naming, that's fine, right? But to me, you almost have to poll them once to figure out what those choices are, but then you almost have to narrow that down because
Yeah.
Right.
it's
Otherwise
gonna be
it's too
so
muddy.
many choice, you know, who knows what they might write in, they might write in Browns or
We
the
can maybe have
Maroons
a
or the.
primary election and then a general election.
Yeah, you almost have to, in my thinking, you almost have to have 2 then. So first, to see what they want, and then second, to kind of maybe have that task force narrow it down again.
I know I'm putting things up, I just saw.
I don't know.
I just saw this process going first. Because Marion was probably the most vocal of the two schools saying when we were talking about co-op, that was one of the most important things to them.
Mhm.
Because that was the one most rewarding experience they had when they were with Meadow, is the kids pick the mascot. So that was ultra important to them. We said, we'd like to afford our students the same opportunities. I don't know, maybe there's a better way to do that than this list, to speed things up, but I can't think of it right now.
For throwing ideas out there, something that was brought up today, would be that, you know, the task force was put together for a reason. I think we need to respect the task force, but, if we would like to see more discussion happen, we could ask the task force to get together and talk about it again. We could also, if we felt that the student voice did not have an opportunity to be heard, with considerations for the task force, we could certainly add in a student survey. It doesn't take long to do a Google form and lists, you know, click the link and list the ideas that you have. We could certainly do that and then present that information with the task force, as well. This would be, again, we have to be unified, so this would have to be run by
Right.
the other, district leaders and, see if they would be okay with that process, but, I mean, I can put together a survey to gather feedback, and that can be probably done within a week's time. Task force could be, a meeting could be organized and, brought together within, a week or 2, and then we'd be looking at where we'd still have plenty of time for the April meeting. But I believe that if we desire to have more student voice, that we find a solution to that, we present that to the task force, that we let the task force do their work, and they look through that
With
information.
more students.
And then we wholeheartedly, put our stamp of approval to what the task force comes up with, as long as it represents our district well.
I'm more in favor of the kids' opinion than the task force, because that's a kind of a hand-selected, you know, group, and if we're looking for the kids to do it, you know, like.
You're gonna get hundreds of ideas.
I know, but.
So somebody's gotta filter through those ideas.
Yeah, right, the task force does need to, yeah, or I mean, but even as long as they're appropriate, or maybe 2 are very, very similar or something, and it should be
We
combined.
could
I don't know.
theoretically, I guess, we could take the top 4 that's on the initial survey, but
Mhm.
there's gonna be such a sprinkling of different ideas that.
Could be. I guess I would feel, yeah, I like the idea that there'd be a little bit more of a formal process for student input. To make sure that everybody gets heard.
I don't know, you know how the other schools handle those their students.
As far as gathering data, they had the same representation of the student council.
Within the school, did they?
Did they put in announcements?
that was an assumption I made based on how the co-op task force functioned, because we spent time surveying, polling people. I guess I assumed the same thing with the students before this, that yes, the task force was, appreciate what they've done, the work they've done, but I thought they were gonna go out and get broad sample information from the student body and then compile it. And that was what their primary function was. I guess from the parents that communicated with me, that doesn't seem to be what happened. That's the feedback I've got.
So would the board support initial survey sent out to gather ideas, task force filtering through those ideas, and then a survey going out to the students with a final survey?
And I think that we need probably to, table this and reach out to the other boards that they would be okay with that approach as well. Because obviously we need all three be in sync to make sure that we're getting representation from Academy and Marion as well.
There's potential for this going very badly if we don't do due diligence to the process. I think we need to have a filtering process of adults looking at it. You know, if we just have students, sometimes, students we have great students, well-intentioned students, but sometimes things with double meanings or whatnot, or
Right.
abbreviations or would slip through and go unnoticed. I think we need to have that adult filtering process to make sure that we're.
Not naming team voting a vote face.
Sure.
That could happen. We can leave it just to a raw vote.
Right, yeah, that sounds good.
So we say we want deeper discussion or we want to write in? Because if we're worried about time, I would say the write-in's the way we go, because it's one that goes out to the students, they have their chance to say what they want to say, it's not if we're, I think we need to be respectful of the task force's time too, because if we're asking them to go back out and poll students, that's gonna require much time on there.
I think I agree with Katie on this, that if we did the write-in, you almost have to do 2 votes.
Anyway, so then why not do the initial canvassing and then distill it down and then put it out for a vote? You're gonna have to vote twice anyway. We will get more information, not make a motion to approve these, get more information and,
This,
table this for next week.
so this would just be a process, so this would fail for lack of motion.
Mhm. All right, next item on the agenda, school board will discuss results from the bid opening for the hangar project.
Yeah, in your packets, we have the bid tabulation sheets, or a copy of the bid tabulation sheets. So we had 3 bidders. So you can see in the first column, you have the bidder. In the second column to the right, you have the base bid. And then you have 3 alternates that were part of this bid package. The first of those alternates being the precast finish, and then the floor finish, and then the performance bonds. So out of the 3, we had the highest that came in for the base bid would have been Visions Construction Group, Inc. at $1,219,000 for the base bid, $46,000 for the alternate bid, number 1 for the precast finish, alternate 2 for the floor finish of $64,000, and for performance bonds of $11,000. Second bid that came in, highest bid that came in was from WS Construction Management LLC, and that came in at $1,187,500 for the base bid. For the precast finish, $49,600. For the floor finish, $65,000, and for the performance bond, $16,000. And the apparent low bidder was Pitts Design Build at $1,099,999, and for alternate 1 of the precast finish, $50,083, for the floor finish, $66,264, and for the performance bonds, $7,876.
discussion, questions?
Just a quick question. Precast finish, that's the outside
That'd
portion
be- So,
to match the school currently?
yes, it would look like brick.
Okay.
On
And
the
the floor finish is just the type of floor that we're doing, right?
Besides,
Yes. Now, talking to some local contractors on that precast finish, that is going to push the finish date way back, because it's a special setup run that they actually have to do for the brick phase. So as you walk in our entryway now, or up this hallway, you got the brick, then you got the concrete above that. It would look like the concrete above that,
Not like the brick.
not like the brick. This precast finish would have that brick look to it.
Okay.
Which I think, I personally feel that it would tie in very nice, because you have that upper level, and if you were to bring that all down and use the same trim, it's gonna tie that whole area together.
where it doesn't look like an addition. like-
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even with some windows, you know, if we can, I believe there's windows figured into this, too, correct?
Yes.
We could trim around those windows with that same brown flashing to help tie everything together, you know what I mean?
And windows were part of the base bid.
Okay, I couldn't remember if there was or not in there, so.
Okay, and then as far as the floor finish, that's what like, is that wood, like you have?
Concrete.
Sealer,
It's
sealer
just-
on the concrete.
And if we didn't do that, it would just be just plain concrete with no sealer?
Correct.
Any further discussion? Jake, then what would be the next, timeline, or what would be the next, if we would go forward with one of these, what would be the next step?
So we would accept a bid this evening, if you feel that there's one that you'd like to move forward with. And then we'd start working with that individual construction company alongside JLG. So we'd add another entity to our discussions and start the planning process for when finishing our design phase is done. So we'd be starting basically the construction process. I would say out of these performance bonds, that would be one for that dollar figure. If the board felt that the threshold was the base bid and that you didn't want to take on much more than that with the performance bonds, that's a pretty small dollar figure that is added on, that would be that alternate three. I would encourage the board to consider if there is a base bid that you're happy with. Cody, do you have any input on if there's any other of the alternates that would be needed? I agree with you that I think curb appeal wise with the precast look matching up above, and they can put the colors into the precast to make it look very identical, close to identical. And with that brown trim, I agree with you, Cody, that would look nice, and it's a cheaper option. So I don't know if the precast finish is necessary, just be a matter of whether the floor finish would be something that the board would see as necessary. That is unfortunate.
Hold on, say that again.
So I don't see the precast, alternate one, I don't see that being necessary. I think we
That's the
can,
brick.
That would be the brick with the white on top.
no brick at
Just
all.
be- It's a concrete panel with a brick stamped into the front.
Okay, none of them are brick with the white like the rest of the building.
So if you look.
If you look up top, that's smooth, or, you can kind of see some rock in there. It'll be white like that. That'll be what the wall looks like,
There'd be no brick.
but no brick.
And typically precast, they have a seam in there. There is, my understanding, there's ways that you can blend in that seam so it looks like just solid, but the one that's currently up on top, the upper part of the gym has those seams. So if we had the seams, had the same color, it would look virtually identical to what the top of our gym looks like. So it would tie in, color match, it would, the scheme of the building would tie in nicely. So I don't, that would be it.
I believe you can do a little, like some color deal, or maybe even some different kind of aggregate to make it look a little different too. I don't believe that's an extra cost, I don't know that for sure, but I know there's multiple options that you can do with that precast wall as well. It's just the actual brick look is a whole separate setup and run type of deal.
Obviously, if we were to accept the bid, Cody, we can decide on the precast alternates, or I should say the precast finish alternate, number 1, or number 2, or number 3, after the fact, correct? We'd still lock in the price on the base bid just by accepting it tonight, and then we'd have more time, or do we need to decide on all the alternates tonight as
I
well?
would think you're gonna have to decide on all their alternates, especially the precast, because I'm guessing that's gonna be a deal where they order right away, and it's gonna be, you know.
That's my big concern, like honestly, this
Yeah,
is
I know.
definitely the right direction for me from when we were going up before, now we're coming back down to earth and I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that if we greenlight this, we're gonna lock in these prices, cause everything is so chaotic right now.
Yes.
You know, I'm okay with locking this in, if it's gonna be at least close to this, I realize, you know, things can go wrong.
Yep.
But, yeah, as long as we're gonna lock that in, so we do need to decide all 3 tonight.
Yeah, for materials, I would say that you
We're
definitely
gonna have to decide on all 3 of them tonight in order to roll forward.
Yeah, for the materials, I think that precast finish would be something that we'd want to make a decision, because that has potential to push the
The big
project
out.
out to where it would not be completed. Right now, we probably have
From,
the
from what I
time.
heard, Slade, on that, is like, you know, we might not even see the panels till January.
Right.
If we were to go with that precast finish.
I just don't know why you wouldn't, and then you'd have this big eyesore on the side of the building sticking out, why would you want it to be nice?
I'm
Spend
still
that much
whichever
money.
one looks like the building looks now. Right, is that, did I see that right? Is that the
So you
precast?
want-
I don't think we're gonna
I
get
want
that.
the
I
brick
think
with
we're
the
gonna
white
get-
on top.
We're gonna get nice, I don't think we're gonna get identical. I don't think that's an option at this point.
And I don't, so, yeah, even if with this precast finish, you're not gonna get brick so high up and then that flat white.
We're not gonna get
above.
a nice white.
No,
This is true.
it's gonna be brick to the top.
Hate both of those. I just hate everything tonight.
Well, maybe it's easier to go out and look at it, honestly, just, you know what I'm saying?
Well, no, I know what it looks like. I mean, so if it's just the white all the way down, it's decided.
So it's
whether
not,
white or brick.
you also have to remember, where them windows are in the gymnasium, that, the roof line of the rest is below that.
You're right.
So it's not all the way as tall as what it currently is out there. It's only about to the brick line
Okay, so then,
is gonna be the height of the roof.
okay, so then personally, I think brick would be the way you wanna go, my opinion.
And you wanna push this finish date out even farther.
It's just the outside, right?
For occupancy, the project would have to be
No,
complete.
it's a panel.
I know.
So, we're essentially, we're paying cash for this, it's a capital outlay. So at any point in time that we wouldn't decide or, go a different option, my understanding is we just do a change order. And so if we wanted to add something in, but it's, you know, those things are gonna cost money, it's not part of the original bid, so we'd have to pay for that, but we could work through that.
Okay, so
And remember, prices are going up.
if we do the brick thing, it's not done until January. If we
No,
do,
the panels don't show up till January.
of this coming year. If we were gonna build it with just the current thing we had now, when is the completion date? The white, the non-precast finish.
I would guess that they could probably wrestle in that room this next year.
I don't want probably.
A lot of factors, a lot of
I,
factors.
I know, cause I
Whether-
think brick would look way nicer, cause it matched the building. And so if they're neither ones we've done in time for wrestling, then I don't care if it's not till January.
Right.
If you're telling me they're wrestling in there because we go the cheaper route, fine, I'll go that way.
And I don't know that even when they precast it in, that it's going to match our brick, you know what I
Right.
mean? Because they would have to dye the concrete when they stamp it in, and to get it to look exactly like that, no.
Well, I mean, at least close enough to where it looks like it belongs. I wish I could ask questions to somebody that might have an idea on this.
My understanding is.
Not that you don't,
Brick
Cody.
veneer, actual brick, like a brick veneer, a thin brick, so it's the precast, and then there's a thin brick layer that goes on the outside, it's like a brick veneer, so it'll look like real brick. It is real brick, it's just a.
Yeah, I don't care if it's full bricks, I just, it looks the same, I mean, to me, that would look the best, but. I
That's
think-
the stamp will be like a pattern.
Not a stamp, it'd be an actual, like, brick veneer, so like a thin layer of brick. It's my understanding of what the finished product would look like, so it's not actual thick brick and mortar. It'd be a thin layer of brick on the outside that would match our current facility, if we decided that $50,000 was something that we, so that's.
Okay, so I have a question, if we picked one, if we picked an option, then can we ask questions,
Once it's final, it's, yeah, that's.
right?
Based on what the Associated School Board of South Dakota.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a
If you
motion
make
that
it
we
a board,
pick
yes.
this design build, and we table the other alternates until I'm done asking stupid questions. So, I
Then
will
I
make
cannot
it,
answer questions.
huh?
Then I can't answer questions.
You can't answer alternate questions?
Can.
You can?
I can.
Okay, I am gonna make a motion that we take Pitt's design build and because it is the cheapest one, I'm gonna make a motion that we accept the base bid and then we will have following discussions on the alternate.
All
Alternates.
right, I have a motion.
Make sense?
Yes, I have a motion from Kyle to approve the acceptance of the bid from Pitt's Design Build for the hangar project with further discussion to occur regarding the alternates.
Second.
Second by Cody, all in favor, say aye.
Alright,
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0 because again, Doug could not vote.
alright, I'll just take the floor, so.
I can't answer anything in regard to cost,
Nope, I don't care
but I
about
can
that.
answer any questions you have related to schedule or any material.
So if we go with the brick outside look,
Yes,
will it be done, not for wrestling this year?
correct.
If we
It's
went
an
with,
actual brick, so they can't, it's like any run of brick that they manufacture, but it's about this thick. So it actually goes down in the bed before you pour the panel, and that, they've gotta have that product first to cast the panel. So right now, this brick probably isn't getting manufactured until middle of November, which means it wouldn't get received by the precast supplier until December. By the time we cast the panel, the cure time probably shows up after the first of the year. If you went with the base bid finish, which is gonna match the ephes up above, which can be colored. I mean, there's a basis of design in the specifications, but the precast will supply samples for everybody to look at, so you can pick aggregate range, color, finish. More than likely, what they've told me if we issue a contract right away, is we would probably be setting panels mid-August, which puts it done prior to December.
okay,
If we didn't set panels till January, we're probably not finishing up until we got winter in there and then we're thawing ground to pour the slab, everything else, we're probably not gonna finish until April.
okay. Well, then I'm fine with skipping it, however, if it's not done before June, and because every time I walk into this room.
I can look at that, cause if I'm not.
And I will find you whenever you receive it, and I will let you know.
From your professional opinion, will just the precast look, will that be a favorable look for our facility?
And this way, we have more issues with clients disliking thin brick with whatever buildings than not. Because everybody has this vision in their head of brick. Pouring 30,000 pound panels is the imperfect process, so it doesn't matter how good it looks, it's not brick. If you're 100 yards away, yeah, we can get them close. So we usually advise clients when we're designing a project to really think long and hard about that if they have it next to an existing brick structure, because it's not the same. It's very hard to match the color on the brick that's 20 years old too, and grout lines don't match otherwise, so. Yeah. Well, I think you'd be happy with the finish, yes, because the precaster we would use is one that we pick when we can pick. The flooring alternate, if the board wanted to table that, that's something that we're not seeing huge cost increases, so if that's something you want to think about for a month, that one's fine. In respect to the precast, we would issue a contract and have them start engineering and shop drawings this week. Same thing with our structural steel, things like that, we can get orders placed sooner than later.
Doug, the floor finish is the one that you go on after.
No, that's LVT. So base bid is sealed concrete, and
Okay, it
the
is sealed.
alternate is
That's
LVT.
curious.
And LVT is what we want more likely.
honestly, for that kind of money, if you're gonna have wrestling mats down most of the time, it's not any, there's no real cushion to it.
It's not gonna make it, like, the floor doesn't last necessarily any longer or anything because of whatever it doesn't do better for mats or anything.
It's a matter of how you wanna use it when the mats aren't like that. It's probably a little bit more friendly for if you're gonna have, a workout class or gym class or something. But the sealer that's specified, you can put flooring on it later, so 5 years down the road.
Sure,
if
if we
you
want
want flooring,
that,
it's not like you have to go grind
that's
out
true.
and finish and add the flooring, you can do it.
I like that.
Okay, and the performance bonds, we just wanna do that because that makes sense.
1 and 3,
So that's,
So then.
you would actually technically have to, I'd have to look at the bid form. That is supposed to be a deduct, so
Which is.
we're saying our performance bond is worth that much on the project. If you don't want to accept it, that means that the way she wrote it, it's not in the price. So the base bid would stay $1,099,999. If you accepted that alternate, you would add that to the $1,099,999.
Right.
Right, but that only makes sense.
To not accept it.
To not accept.
It's a performance bond. If you don't trust me, I probably should be on screen.
All right,
As you can see, our bond rate's much lower than the
Yeah.
other two on this list, so that says we're
okay,
a
so.
fiscally responsible contractor.
So then,
So
we
we're
need
moving
another,
on.
we need another motion to say we don't wanna do any of the alternates, correct?
No, we do
Well,
wanna do one.
we already made a motion to accept the base bid, we're good to go.
We got the base bid, yeah.
Yes.
One is,
That's all we
that was
need
if
to
we
do.
did the brick, the low brick thing, we don't wanna do that.
Right. And
So,
we're gonna
okay,
leave
so we don't
the
need to do
sealed
that.
concrete.
Okay.
We're good.
We can always do
We're
the
moving on.
floor finish later.
Right, exactly.
Oh, that was easier.
Circle back. All right. Next item on the agenda, the school board will hold a discussion about posting for a 6th grade certified teaching position.
I'm gonna turn this over to the principals and
Okay.
mainly Katie. We're in a position where we can look at possibly doing a restructure. And that would allow for us to hire a full-time teacher for that 6th grade classroom that we've already decided on, that will be moving down to the elementary.
So we had a resignation from high school staff. What we would do then is we would keep the rest of our staff on this end of the building. I know before when 6th graders were on that end of the building, there was still a little bit of shared staff. We would not be sharing any staff. That FTE on that end of the building would do all the 6th grade things. 6th graders would not come over here. So we would utilize our two math teachers, language arts teachers, and then we'd have one science and one social studies, and then Spanish and health. So I think that I'm confident that we can make that work. So basically, we're just taking that FTE and moving it to that end of the building. So it's not hiring an additional FTE, but with the restructure of the 6th grade moving down, that's kind of what we think would be best.
And what we do at the elementary is it wouldn't be self-contained, we'd go back to the way it was set up when I got here, that the 6th grade would run a mini middle school within themselves. So they would move between Chris Mask and whoever is hired for that next position. So they would still have that same motion as far as movement, so that gets them a little more prepared when they do come through
Right.
7th grade. Just not the full one.
Right, that's helpful. Okay.
It's a mini step, it'd be a mini middle school.
Good. Questions or discussion? I think that sounds great. So we'll require a motion to approve the posting for a 6th grade certified teaching position. Do I have a motion? Motion by Kyle, second by Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll require a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2 parentheses 1. Do I have a motion? Motion by Cody, second by Slade.
Sure.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries in executive session at 8:24 p.m. Everybody?
Thanks for coming.